It's time to link up with Dr. Computer Alex Newman. Good morning, Alex.
Good morning, Jerry. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well so far. A little bit, I don't know. I've one of these mornings where I feel a little bit agitated. See, I can't even get my words out, and
Oh,
this all feels so rather disjointed. And other days I'm here and I'm fine. It's just one. I mean, it's just one of those days, I guess.
maybe somebody switched you to decaf and didn't tell you about
Oh, I hope not.
it.
And how's everything with you? How are you doing? Because you're COVIDing.
Well, I was COVIDing. I tested positive on Saturday, and yeah, I tested negative yesterday. So I
Oh,
think
okay.
I've managed to fight through the worst of it, which wasn't that bad. Fortunately, I'm triple vax boosted, everything. I try to do things as healthily as possible. So I think I'm over the worst of it. So if there was any way to just catch this, I mean, this is the best way because avoiding any kind of hospital stays or
Hmm.
anything like
Hmm.
that is what these vaccines are made for. So I'm really glad I was able to participate in all the programs and get the jabs and whatever. And I barely, this barely affected me. I was feeling really crappy on Saturday. That's why I got tested.
Hmm.
But crappy as in just a general malaise, and um, I felt very tired and with a little joint pain on Monday, but I worked anyway, and I've been working through the whole thing, working from home, of course,
Hmm. Hmm.
and managed to beat it real easy. So I'm really glad for that.
Of course, you were able to be tested again after 5 days, which means that you can now you've got your negative. You're free to sort of get back to a normal life.
Yeah, that's one of the things that I was talking to a friend, Mike Kelly, who runs these tests,
Hmm.
labs, and whatever. And I really want to be really grateful to him for all the information that he provided. Yeah, I'm gonna have to carry that result. I actually have it printed,
Hmm.
and I
Hmm.
carry it with me if I have to leave the house. I don't leave the house much, anyways, because I work from home. But I'm gonna have to carry it for some time because, unfortunately, even though usually minutes after you get your positive test results, you get a red code in your QR
Hmm.
code
Hmm. Hmm.
at Minsa, the reverse process is not as quick, unfortunately. They
Hmm.
appear to be overwhelmed right now with the number of cases, which is bad because you don't want anybody to get sick at all. But
Hmm.
the fact that it is mostly Omicron and people are just weathering it for 5 days, and then they're usually fine afterwards with no after effects or anything like that, then that means we are a little bit closer to just making this endemic and not a problem as it is right now.
Hmm.
So,
One thing interesting after because I just did 10 days isolation and but what was interesting because you mentioned that was I actually got a letter from the Ministry of Health sent to me after literally on the day after my 10th day, stating that I was in accordance with all the different laws passed in the Gazette. This one listed the laws. I was tested positive on the 17th of January. I completed my isolation, and therefore I was sort of up and running. And because then it made me realize, of course, as well, not just you get the red, but you're if the police stop you for any reason or decide to or just say, hey, I want to see your ID, it will come up that you're supposed to be in quarantine,
yeah.
and that could land you in front of the judge. It's as easy as that. So,
Yeah.
and what I did was I copied that letter and I put it on my phone in my little I have a special sort of album which
Hmm.
has all my COVID information on. So if I go anywhere or whatever, it's easy to find. You can show your QR code, you can show the letter, you can show your card which has all your vaccination information on, which I think for everybody to do is a very good idea. But if you are supposed to be in isolation, they will be keeping an eye on you.
Yeah, and that's okay. I use something called Office Lens. Maybe you've heard of it. It's an app that's available for iOS and Android.
Mm.
And it allows you to take a picture of a document and it will straighten it out automatically. So it works like having a pocket scanner in your hands.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can have Office Lens then save that over to OneDrive or to your phone or both or any combination thereof. And it can also save documents to OneNote if you're a user of that particular application. So it's something I also recommend people. I usually take pictures of all my invoices so I can file them under the same folder for every month, and then I give that to my accountant for tax purposes and things like that. So
Okay.
it's always nice to have.
Will that let you save it as a picture, a JPEG?
Yes, and it also converts to PDF if you need it.
Oh, great. Okay, excellent. No, that's worth. I don't think I've used it. The name rings a bell, but I don't think I've used it. Listen, quickly before we get on to our topic, Renee dropped me a little note this morning. Good morning. I got a question for Dr. Computer, not related to today's topic. What is the name, brand of the bullet-shaped wide-angle camera that you bought into the studio a couple of months ago? She was telling her husband about it. They thinks it might be useful for his work meetings.
Yeah, the brand name is Coolpo. That's COOLPO. And if you are, able to wait a little while, I can give the link to the page where you can see it and even purchase it if you want to Jerry, and he can put it on the website as well.
Definitely. So Coolpo.
Yeah. It's Coolpo. The Coolpo 360.
No,
yeah.
no poo. No poo.
No.
Okay, no, just checking. So, virtual cards, what are they? How do they work? You mentioned, is this like a credit card? Is this the type? Because we were talking the other week where you had a card where you could just sort of put a certain amount of money on it or whatever, and you can. But I sort of looked into that, and it seems that very few places will actually accept it.
That's not the case. In this case, if we're talking about, for example, Zinli, any place that has a Visa, any place that has a Visa logo will take the card with no issues.
If they recognize it and accept it as, because I mean that's the thing. It doesn't have Visa on it, does it?
It does.
Oh, it does have Visa on it.
Yeah, it has the Visa logo, and you can pretty much pass any credit card on the machine. If it's an actual Visa card, it'll pass, because it's not the eye of the beholder looking at the card that is valid. It's the terminal.
The machine. The machine.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. The machine makes the decision, and it can tell if it's a fake or not, or if it's valid or not. So, there are several kinds of new methods of payment right now. Some of them are not really that new. It's just that they've only become popular now. The first kind is what's called a disposable card. You may remember, if you ever had a Banismo account about 20 to 25 years ago, when they started having like online banking at Banismo here in Panama, they had what they called a temporary card or a disposable card or whatever, that you would create a MasterCard with a valid number, a valid expiration date, and a valid address and your name, with a number that could be only used once. So let's say you wanted to buy a toaster for $49.99. You would put $50 in, you would purchase that online, and then 2 to 3 days later, at the time, they would give you that penny back as change back in your account. You would deposit a certain amount. They would take that and use that to make the payment. And this was done so that even if the place where you bought the toaster from had been hacked and their information, including your credit card details, had been obtained by third parties, it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't work. It wouldn't be valid anymore, because it was a single transaction number. That's called a disposable card. This still exists in several ways. One of them is a website that I don't know if it's usable in Panama. I know that it's very popular in the U.S. It's called privacy.com, and it can let you create these virtual cards and these disposable cards, or it can let you create separate virtual cards that have limits on them. So what's the difference between a virtual card and a disposable card? The virtual card is a credit card that exists online. It doesn't have to have a physical counterpart. And it lets you purchase things online, and it gives you certain benefits that some physical cards don't have. For example, you can put limits on them and make them higher or lower at any time. You can turn them on or off. Let's say you give these to your children or any other person. You can turn them on or off accordingly. And you can have control and see what's getting spent on these cards more easily than you could sometimes do with the physical cards. So virtual cards are used a lot in cases where you, for example, have a physical card that you use when you shop around in malls or stores or whatever, but you have a separate card that you use for online purchases. So that, for example, if your physical card gets lost or stolen, you can still buy stuff online if you have to. Or if you're using your physical card to pay your bills, say your electricity, your phone, your internet, but one of the websites where you used the virtual card was hacked and they got the information off of the website, you can just dismiss that virtual card and have it out of the system, have them issue you a new one, usually for free, and then you can continue making purchases online, knowing that the physical card is still in your hand and still safe in that regard. And you don't have to go through the problem of going to your electricity provider and your internet provider and everybody else, to change everything. Right. Or you could have separate payment options, like separate virtual cards for each of your providers, and know that even if one of them gets hacked, the others don't have the same problem.
How do you go about setting that up in the first place?
There are several ways. For example, I use one of them called Zinly. You can go online to zinly.com and you can fill out all the details and whatever. You run the app. The app will take a picture of you and your cedula or passport or whatever. And then after that, they will issue you a virtual card right then and there. If you want a physical card, they can also send you one. And in the app, you can tell how much money you have deposited on it. You can deposit more money by going into those Punto Pago cashiers and in certain stores. I think Novi is one of them. You can send money and receive money from like all over the place in Latin America to other users of Zinly, so you can use it as a digital wallet as well. And you can use it to purchase stuff online at any time. Now, the advantage of having a physical card is that you can go to an ATM and pull money out of it if you have to in a pinch. So that's one way to do that. The other way, for example, our friend Yasmin was offered a virtual card by her bank. So talk to your bank. Maybe your bank has a virtual card option that you can also use in that regard. Now, there is also something else called a digital card, which is a digital version of your physical card. And if you've ever used Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, Google Pay, or anything like that, you may have seen that there's an option to take a picture of your card, get all the information and whatever, and then in certain places, I haven't seen this yet in Panama, you can just wave your phone over the terminal instead of the physical card and make the payment, usually after putting in your Face ID or your fingerprint or something like that. So it's even safer than a physical card, because if somebody steals your physical card, even though it's contactless or whatever, if the person at the cashier isn't asking you for your ID, it could be a stolen card. That being said, if you're using something like Google Pay, Apple Pay, Samsung Pay, or any of the other applications like that, they usually require you to use your fingerprint or your Face ID or something like that in order to make the payment. So it adds an additional layer of safety and security for your payment information if you use it online or if you use it in the physical world.
I mean, for instance, I have, I guess on my phone, on my watch, I have Samsung Pay.
Mm-hmm.
How many places would accept that?
A lot of places around the world right now, not Panama.
Okay.
In Panama, no. I mean, I
But
know
what's the problem?
we have. I think the Superintendencia de Bancos, which is a local bank regulator, doesn't have enough clout or teeth to make the banks, accept things like these as easily. I mean, you remember probably from going back to the UK at some point in the 90s or the beginning of the century that they had chip and pin on the cards, by the turn of the century, and we only started having chips on our cards a little over, a little under 10 years ago. And this was after the Superintendencia de Banco was on the bank's case for like 10 years or so to get them on board.
Don't we have to make our mind up? Because, this is where everything is so disjointed. Mm-hmm. We're trying to sell this country as a tourism center. Mm-hmm. People come from advanced countries to visit us here in Panama. I remember talking about, you could talk about the cards. I remember when I first came here, and when my office administrator, and I said, one of the first things I need, get me a cell phone. Okay? Cell phone? Okay? I ended up with a brick with about a 4-foot aerial on it.
With radio patching.
Which the amazing thing about it was if anybody wanted to call me, if I was in Do It Center, it was a different number than if I was in a Rocha. Yeah. And so this thing soon went in a bin. I ended up walking around with pages. And I remember when cell phones eventually came here, a friend of mine turned around and said, "Oh, they'll never catch on in Panama." And the rest is history, because I think we've got about 3 times as many cell phones roaming around as we have people. But the thing is, look, we must make our mind up. Do we want to become an international tourism center, or don't we? If we do, you've got to step your game up. If you want to be a shopping center, which is what we're going that way, you want people to come here to shop, you've got to have the facilities to be able to meet the demands of the customer.
Mm-hmm. And hopefully whoever's, in charge of making those decisions will at some point, put their foot down and say, we need to implement this as soon as possible. Of course, there's always the fact that I'm sure that Apple, in the case of Apple Pay, Samsung, in the case of Samsung Pay, and Google, in the case of Google Pay, and all the other pays, they want their cut. And, with margins being thin, I'm sure that some of these financial institutions are going to fight tooth and nail for that not to happen. Same thing, happened to things like credit cards and cryptocurrency, which is ironic because some of the bigger companies in the cryptocurrency market right now are Visa, MasterCard, and some of the bigger banks. And they're just trying to figure out how they can steer the whole thing in a way that becomes beneficial to them as well. So it's kind of every mega corporation for themselves in that regard. So I
think the banks are making enough money that they could accommodate us, don't you?
I do agree with you. They might disagree with you, unfortunately, and with pretty much everybody else on that matter. But I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball, but I just hope that the future is brighter than it seems. With all of these instruments, virtual cards, disposable cards, new digital wallets coming out, I hope that people not only leverage all of these tools going forward, but also educate themselves in good spending habits, good saving habits, and good investment habits. Because unfortunately, even though we did get a lot of advanced math in school, it was very, academic and rhetorical and not as practical as it should be. Mm-hmm. And a lot of us, in in what we call, home economics or whatever in Spanish. It was educación para el hogar, or education for the home. They told us which side of the table the fork goes in on, but they didn't tell us how to budget a home, how to choose the right mortgage payment or loan, how to calculate compound interest. I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I took business administration in college, and one of the subjects that we had to learn was financial math, which I had to take like 3 times because I flunked twice. Mm-hmm. If it wasn't for that, I wouldn't even know the concept of things like compound interest and things like that. And I think my personal belief is, if that we had some form of financial education when I was in high school, I would have saved at least 10 years of my life. And the good thing is that applications such as Binance and platforms such as Binance have a lot of courses that you can take for free that can help you in that regard. Mm-hmm. And I myself am trying to take some time out to look at all these courses on how to invest your money, how to save money, how to budget your money, how to manage your money better. There's also a lot of very good resources here in Panama. There's a website, there's an Instagram account called Cinco Palos. It mm-hmm. translates to 5 sticks, but it's basically $5. And it's from a very dear friend who also gives financial advice on how to, save money, how to budget yourself, and things like that. And, credit cards are not inherently evil. It's how we use them. I mean, you, for example, have mentioned that, you use them and you pay them right away mm-hmm. because you don't mm-hmm. want to be bogged down by interest. And one good way of getting used to that, not spending money you don't really have, is to have some of these virtual cards, these digital cards that you put money into, mm-hmm. as mm-hmm. opposed to you borrow money from, so that you can develop good financial spending habits in that regard.
And for instance, as I mentioned, I got Samsung Pay on my watch. So if I was to sort of set that up with my credit card information, and then you get this NFC thing and you just put your phone, it's not going to register?
Usually, it will register in terminals that are enabled for that. The ones here in Panama, I do not believe they are enabled for that.
It has to be enabled specifically for Samsung Pay.
Yes.
It's not just the NFC link.
Yeah, because it doesn't really clone your card. It just takes some of the information and signs it itself. Because mm-hmm. the chip in your card is also a digital signature chip, mm-hmm. so that when you put the card to the reader, it does have a specific handshake it goes through, a conversation mm-hmm. that it goes through, which cannot be replicated by the phone because the phone doesn't have that chip in mm-hmm. it. It basically tells the terminal, hey, this information I have about this card, I vouch for it. And that's why, for example, Samsung mm-hmm. or Apple or Google will charge a small commission, because you are transferring that trust to this other company that does have to maintain an infrastructure to keep this trust intact.
If it's a matter of trust, I'm just glad that Facebook don't have a pay system.
I believe they kind of tried and they tested it.
They're coming out with their own currency, weren't they?
Yeah, and that didn't work out. Fortunately, I guess. So, yeah. But I'm sure it's not going to be the last thing that we use to, trade with. I know there's a lot of evolution going on in the financial technology or fintech market. So right now there's kind of a Cambrian explosion of just new and different ways of doing things, and I'm guessing the better ones, the more adaptable ones, are the ones that will survive.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm. Okay, interesting. So really, though, for us here in Panama, we don't need to worry too much about that right now. But the one you mentioned, like the Zinli, that works.
Oh yeah, it works very well. In some cases, too well. I, for one, had an issue where I used a Panamanian credit card to add money to it. Then I used a U.S. credit card and added money to it, and the system halted there for a second. Said like something like, "Hey, wait a minute, we need to verify that this is kosher. So call support and let's talk this over or whatever." Which gives me a little bit of confidence that they are having a lot of eyes, even if they are digital, on what's going on with your account. Anything out of the ordinary gets flagged so that you don't lose your money as easily. So I'm really glad that these instruments exist, because it makes it easier for you to manage not only your money, but who has the information that points to where your money is. And I think that's pretty important.
Interesting. Anything else happening in the world of tech? Anything exciting? Anything new that's coming out?
Well, I've been playing around with the Maxell Hypershock wireless headset a lot. This is now my favorite gaming headset on my PlayStation. It actually is very versatile. It's about, I think, $90 the cost. It's available in pretty much every place that sells good electronics. And it works with computers. It works with video game consoles. It works with phones. So you can pretty much use it with any device. It's got RGB lights, so it's kind of cool looking if you're into that. But the best thing is it's got a really good mic that you can take off if you want to use it outside or whatever and not look weird. And it works with pretty much anything you throw at it. And it's got really good quality. And something for gamers, it has a rumble function built in, so that when you get shot or explosions or whatever in the game, you actually feel the rumble when you're playing. It's not something I would recommend for music, but for the games, it just gives you a little bit more kind of an immersive feeling. So, I highly recommend these headsets if you're looking for something that will work out of the box with pretty much anything you have at home. I know there are more specialized gaming headsets. There are more specialized, professional headsets like the ones you and I are wearing right now for radio and things like that. But for general purposes, Hypershock is something I can recommend. I'm also playing around with the Galaxy S21 FE 5G.
Oh, I've seen it. I was seeing that advertised in a lot of the windows in the mall the other day. How's that?
It's pretty good. Just like the S20 from last year, which is the one I have, it has almost all of the features of the S21, but for like $500 less. And it's got, let me show it to you here. Instead of being all glass or whatever, it's got a flat matte back, but it's got the 30x zoom. It's got a great processor as well.
NFC.
It's got NFC. It's got pretty much everything, even wireless charging.
I was just going to ask you wireless charging, because I remember I had the last one I had, which I'm using actually in the studio still. It's sort of working all the time. I use it for the WhatsApp. That was a great phone, but it was minus NFC. It was minus wireless charging. And what kind of price is that one coming out at?
Around $700-ish. A little bit more, a little bit less if you want 128 or 256 gigabytes of storage, which I'm totally fine with 128 because I don't do that much like video recording or anything, and a lot of the important stuff that I have is either on the cloud or I have it, access to it.
Okay.
So I really don't need that much storage. But some people who travel a lot and maybe want to take a lot of video and photos and whatever, and then transfer them over to the cloud or to a computer, I understand that they could use a little bit more space. But 128 or 256 gigabytes, great camera, great battery life, even though it's got a much more powerful and capable processor as well. So it's a pretty good alternative for the price. So at that price point, you get a lot of the features of the more capable and powerful phones. That being said, it does not come with a charger, but it does accept any USB charger that you're used to. And it does come with a charging cable, though.
All right. And as for me, I am wearing my new Mackie because as we're talking about professional audio, one that I got put onto the Mackie headphones a while ago, studio headphones, and the sound is incredible. They have just bought out. It's only just come out, it's only just available. The Mackie MC40 BT. They are actual fact both plug-in, which is how I wear them in the studio, but they're also, you get the Mackie studio sound because they're now Bluetooth. It's the first Bluetooth headsets that Mackie have bought out, and they are first class. Not bad. $149.
I'm saving up for a set of Mackie studio, speakers, the monitors. That is something I'm looking forward to. My birthday is on March 6th. Just
congratulations, and depending on what I buy you, then will depend on what you buy me on the 21st.
Okay.
I wish it was the other way around.
Yeah.
Alex, as always, thank you so very much.
Great to be here.
And great to have you. You take care, and I guess you're free to get out and about now. So
I am. I don't have much reason to, but I will.
Yeah. All right, Alex. Speak to you next week.
You too. Bye.
Take care, my friend.